Okay.
Okay, Be'ezus Hashem, we are Daf Ayin Vav. And we're going to be beginning on Daf Ayin Hey Amud Beis by the Tashma over here on your screen. I'm just going to review what we're talking about. It's very straightforward, simple. All these Dafim are like short, but they have stick with one topic, and then we'll have the Mishnah. But basically, what the Gemara is talking about is Rabbi Elazar's opinion. Rabbi Elazar has this very geschmacka opinion that if a guy wants to say to his wife, listen, honey, whatever neder you're going to make, I want it to be nullified in advance. Can that work? So Rabbi Elazar says it can work, and it can work. So it's a nullified neder. So if he goes on a business trip and she makes a neder, the neder is nullified. That's the opinion of Elazar, and the Chachamim disagree with him. The Chachamim say no. The Chachamim say that this kind of business doesn't work. He has to hear the neder, and then afterwards he can nullify. So Rabbi Elazar says to him, and here is a good, Meir just reminded me that this is a good example of refuah. If Rabbi Elazar said to Rabbanan, listen, if a husband has the power to nullify a neder that's in place, shouldn't a husband have the power to block a neder from taking effect in the first place? So he can prevent a neder from taking place. That was what Rabbi Elazar said to the Chachamim. In other words, like if you have a medication that could heal somebody, certainly this medication can be used as a preventive medicine. So Rabbi Elazar says, why can't the husband have the right to, even before he hears the neder, say to his wife, any neder you're going to make should be nullified, should be mufar. So the Chachamim say back to Rabbi Elazar like this. So let's read it inside, and then we'll see what this is going to bring a raya to, or what Rabbi Elazar's opinion is. Okay, so we're starting from the Tashma, about 5 lines from the bottom of Ayin Hey Amud Beis. Tashma coming here. Amru Loi Rabbi Elazar. So the Chachamim say to Rabbi Elazar, you say that if something could heal something, certainly it could prevent something. Okay, is that always the case? Take example, a mikvah. Ma mikvah. If a mikvah, a person who's tamei, right? Shamale esatuma mitumasan. It takes away the tumah from his tumah. This expression mala means that you have to. Mala means you have to go totally into the mikvah and sort of nullify yourself in the mikvah, like you're totally in the mikvah. And then when you get out of the mikvah, your tumah flies away, right? That agree. Everybody agrees to that. But does that prevent you from becoming tamei anymore? It doesn't prevent you from becoming tamei anymore. I mean, certainly you could potentially become tamei. So a mikveh is something that could heal, but cannot be used as a preventive medicine. So we see that concept that just because somebody could heal, something can be done to heal or take away something in existence, doesn't mean that it has the power to prevent it from occurring in the first place. And that's what he said. That's what the Chachamim said. Odom she'ein males atmeim mitumasam ein adin she'lo yatzas tar mitumam. We're not going to be garis this. There's a better girsa that says, so also a husband who has the power, just because he can mate for the neder doesn't mean that he could prevent the neder from occurring in the first place. So just like a mikvah. Now, why did the Gemara bring this in? Because what you see is that the Rabbanan responded to Rabbi Elazar comparing this to a mikvah. So it's understood that what the Rabbanan are trying to say is that a mikvah does not prevent a person from becoming tamei at all. And you're saying, Rabbi Elazar, that a husband should have the right and power to prevent the neder from taking effect. So we see that Rabbi Elazar's opinion is so strong that he holds that the husband has the power to stop a neder from taking effect. By making this declaration, he stops a neder from taking effect. Shma minoch, from here you understand, Rabbi Elazar's opinion is loy chayolim, that a husband can make sure that his wife's neder does not at all take effect because of the declaration that he said. And this was a question that the Gemara asked. How far does Rabbi Elazar go? Rabbi Elazar holds the declaration work, but how does it work? Does it work that the wife makes the neder, but all of a sudden the declaration kicks in. So it was effective for a moment, and then it's no more effective. Or it doesn't take effect at all. So from the language of the Rabbanan's understanding of Reb Lezer, we hear that Reb Lezer's opinion is that it doesn't take effect at all. And that's the point. Now, just to remind you, what would be the difference according to Reb Lezer if the neder took effect or did not take effect? What's the neder? At the end of the day, it's either didn't take effect, so it's not a neder, or it took effect for like a half a minute and then became nullified. What's the difference? Because Reb Lezer, the Gemara's question was, the Gemara had a shaila if a woman made a neder and she says, I want to be a nazir, and her husband already pre-declared that any neder she's going to make is nullified. So if she made a neder, I'm going to be a nazir, and somebody else said, I want to be like you. So if you learn pshat, Reb Lezer's opinion is that her neder, her naziris, never took effect. So the person says, I want to be like you, he meant nothing because her neder never took effect. So how could his, who he is trying to latch on to her, would take effect? So that certainly wouldn't take effect. But if you learn Reb Lezer's opinion is that her neder does take effect, but the other person, but then it gets right away nullified. So when this person heard her saying, I want to be a nazir, and at that moment he said, I want to be like you, so then even if her neder gets nullified after the first minute, but for 1 minute she was a nazir, so it would take effect. The second person is a nazir. Anyway, what you do see from this opinion is Reb Lezer's opinion goes so to the extreme that a husband's declaration makes it that his wife's neder, loy chayolin, doesn't take effect at all. So that's what the Gemara says. We go to Ayin Vav Amar Aleph, where the Gemara says, Eima Seifa. Let us take a look at the end of the Brisa. Amru loy l'Reb Lezer. So they're another example that the Chachamim gave to Reb Lezer, just to prove the point that sometimes Chachamim say, just because something can heal something doesn't mean it's preventive. It can prevent it from happening. So the Chachamim say to Reb Lezer, in mapilin keli tamei li taher, if I could tovel a keli tamei to become tamei, tar, let's say you have a becher and it's tamei, you could dip it in the mikvah and it becomes tar. So yat bilu kli likshi tamei li tar, can I be tovel a keli that when I tovel the keli, is it enough of a preventive medicine that as soon as it becomes tamei, it'll automatically turn to tar? So what the Chachamim is saying is, it's a mikvah, a keli mikvah is not such a good mikvah, is a mikvah that is metar a keli from tuma. It takes off the tuma of a becher, let's say, a keli, but it's not enough to prevent it that if it becomes tamei, it could become tar again automatically without sticking it back into the mikvah. So the language that the Chachamim learned in this part of the Brisa, it seems that their understanding of Reb Lezer's opinion is Reb Lezer holds that what the wife's neder does take effect for a moment, for half a minute, and then kicks in the declaration of the husband. Shma mino chayolin. So from the end of the Brisa, you can derive that Reb Lezer holds that the neder takes effect for a minute, and then the husband's declaration kicks in. So from what is Reb Lezer's opinion? From this brisa, it seems Reb Lezer's opinion is it does not take effect, or it does take effect and then gets nullified. So how do you understand this brisa? Amrei, so the yeshiva answered this question. Yeshiva boys answered this question. Rabbanim loy kaimu laham b'taimid Reb Lezer. Rabbanim did not understand how far Reb Lezer goes. And this is what the Rabbanan said to Reb Lezer. My sviralach, what do you hold? Sviralach techaylin ubatlin. Do you hold that it takes effect and then gets nullified to have a kli to yuftach? Then we have a question, why any keli mikvah, when you dip a keli into a mikvah, it does not stop it from when it becomes tamei to automatically turn into tar. And if you don't hold that, if you hold so strong that the neder of the wife never takes effect, Rabbi Lezer, because the husband's declaration, if that's what you hold, So then we have a problem for you to have a mikveh to yoftach. Then the mikveh should be a question to you, where a man could go into the mikveh and then he becomes tahar, but that doesn't stop him from ever becoming tamei again. So that's a question against you, Rabbi Elazar. And that's what Rabbi Rabbanan had a question against Rabbi Elazar's opinion. So Tashma come in here. Rabbi Elazar's opinion, Omar lehen Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar questioned the Chachamim. And what Rabbi Elazar is questioning the Chachamim back. He's asking back, you should be on my side, that a husband could make this declaration and stop his wife from making a neder. What is Rabbi Elazar's opinion? Because Rabbi Elazar says to Chachamim, Umaz roim tameim. If let's say I have, pieces of wheat, okay, any type of seeds that are tamei, right? I have tamei seeds. Kevin shazoram bakarka. As soon as I plant it in the ground, let's say I take seeds, tamei seeds, and plant it in the ground, tahorim. As soon as it takes root in the ground, these seeds are tahar, right? That's even if they didn't go to the mikvah, because that's it. Once you bury it, it's tahar. Zuruim va'oindim. So if something did not become tamei, but was already planted in the ground, like a tree or any vegetation that grows out of the ground, certainly is prevented, like kolshkein, certainly it would not become tamei. You agree with me that not only does the ground take off the tumah, but something that was in the ground, it prevented from accepting tumah in the first place. So that's what the Rabbi Elazar is trying to prove, that he is correct, that if something could take off, certainly it has the power to prevent. If the ground, planet Earth, can take seeds, and when you plant tamei seeds, it makes it tahar, it also could take any vegetation, as long as it's still connected to the ground, prevent it from becoming tamei. So that we know, mechuber lekarka is protected from becoming tamei. So shma mino, from way Rabbi Elazar expressed himself, loy chaylim. That's how far Rabbi Elazar's opinion is. Rabbi Elazar's opinion is that a husband's declaration to his wife will prevent the neder from ever taking effect. Okay, so that's what we ended this conversation. So this is the machlokes. If a husband makes a declaration and says any neder wife you're going to make doesn't take effect, and he says any neder it should be nullified, her neder, if she would make a neder, it never takes effect according to Rabbi Elazar. According to the Chachamim, it does take effect. It does take effect, and the husband would have to re-nullify it again when he hears it. So that's the machlokes between Rabbi Elazar and the Chachamim. But seemingly, Rabbi Elazar has a very good kal v'chomer. He says that if a husband has the power to take away an existing neder, certainly he has the power to prevent her from making a neder in the first place. He can nullify it. Anything that comes out of her mouth is automatically nullified. So the question is, Rabbanan, Rabbanan don't darshan kal v'chomers. I mean, seems to be like a similar kal v'chomer to what we'll find in another place. But Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, a man has a right to sell his daughter. Let's say he can't afford. He has a baby girl, 7-year-old girl, and he can't afford to keep her because he's not making enough parnasa. So he sells her as a shifcha, right? That's what the Chumash says. But he could only do so up until she's 12 years old. So I might think that a father, just like he could mefer neder or can marry his daughter off to whoever he wants, when she turns into a 12-year-old, I might think that he also has the power to sell her as a 12-year-old for her to be a slave. So Amrit kal v'chomer, I will sell you kal v'chomer. Mechura kabar, if she was sold already from 7 years old, and she turned 12 years old, Yotzed, Chumash says that she leaves. The Chumash says, V'yotzachinam ein kasev. We darshan that a girl who was sold at 7 years old to be a slave, a Jewish slave, Alma Ivriya, then when she turns 12 years old, the Chumash says she goes free. So if she goes free at 12, ein mechura ein adin shloi timaka. Certainly, if she was not yet sold, of course she cannot be sold. The father will have not the power to sell her. So in other words, the fact that she's 12 can take away of an existing time that she was a slave, certainly it could prevent her from becoming a slave. So we see that Chachamim have this concept in their head that if something has the power to remove, it has the power to prevent. So why wouldn't the Chachamim agree to Rabbi Elazar's opinion that if a husband has the power to remove a neder from his wife, why can't he prevent the neder from taking effect in the first place? Why wouldn't Rabbanan darshan this kal v'chomer? We go to Ayin Vav and Beis, and that's true. The Alma darshan kal v'chomer. Yes, the Chachamim, they would definitely agree with this kal v'chomer. The Shana Hacha over here it's different. The Amakra, the pasuk says, "Isha yikimena v'isha yiferena," that the husband is the one that confirms a neder, and he's the one that can nullify the neder. It's a pasuk, and we darshan a hekesh esher bo lechlal hekim. If it's a type of neder the husband could confirm, bo lechlal hafer, then he can nullify, which means only an existing neder a husband can confirm. He cannot confirm a non-existing neder. If she didn't make it, what is he confirming? So we learned before that if everybody agrees to that concept, that if she did not make a neder yet, a husband has no right to confirm a neder, to say every neder that comes out of your mouth is confirmed. That we know for a fact. So since he cannot confirm such a neder, therefore, since he could confirm such a neder that came out of her mouth, he can nullify. But if it's a type of neder she had not made, and therefore he cannot confirm, then he cannot nullify that neder. And that's why the Chachamim over here will not darshan the kal v'chomer, even though the kal v'chomer makes perfect sense, but it is exeris akasev that a husband does not have the power to prevent nedarim from taking effect. He has no nullification prior to her making a neder. Only after she made the neder, then he can nullify the neder. New Mishnah.
I have a question. I mean, I understand where Rabbi Elazar is coming from, and he's comparing sort of like the ground to the husband's contract, saying if this happens on a ship somewhere, all the nedarim that she makes are null and void. But what if she makes, let's say, is she stuck in some place, whatever it is, a horrible thing, and she makes a neder, and it comes out, it's a good one. In other words, and that would mean that whatever good comes out of her mouth, good or bad, it's nullified. It doesn't make practical sense to me that he would say something like that.
Well, I would understand that a husband would not want his wife to have any neder on her, because there's a big avera if someone has a neder and violates that neder. Bad punishments come to a person. So he would want her to have a nullification of the neder.
So what we're assuming basically from the beginning, and I guess that's what it is, that I think this was kind of the common thread, I guess you're right, with nedarim, that any neder at all pretty much is really a bad thing.
Yeah, pretty much. The Gemara says that if you make nedarim, even stuff to prevent you from doing an avera is not a good thing.
Right.
It's not a good thing.
So that's where
if the husband has a power, then she should not make any nedarim.
That's right. That's right. So according to Rabbi Elazar,
it's not any nedarim because he doesn't agree with it. He doesn't want an officer.
Right. Okay. So let's look at how long. So let's say a husband here, Mishnah begins and says, "Nedarim kol hayom." You can make for neder a ganze tog. In other words, a husband doesn't have all day to think about and decide whether he wants to confirm or whether he wants to nullify his wife's neder. He has a limited amount of time to think about this. Then automatically, if that time passes, it's default confirmed. Now, how long is that? It's kol hayom, the day that he hears it. So the Mishnah explains, yesh b'davar lahakol ulahachmir. Sometimes there's a lot of time, and sometimes there's not. Heitzad, Nadra b'leila Shabbos. Friday night, he's sitting with his wife. She makes a neder, right? Yafeh b'leila Shabbos. He can nullify that neder right at the meal. Uv'yom Shabbos, and on Shabbos day, ad shetechshach till Motzei Shabbos. So basically, if she makes the neder at the beginning of the night on Friday night, he can nullify the neder up until he has time until Motzei Shabbos. And nullifying a neder is permitted to be done on Shabbos. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah. But nadra in kashecha, let's say by Shalashu this time, she makes a neder. So then he only has up until Matzah Shabbos, made for Achaloi Techshak. He has to nullify prior to it becoming dark. Shim Chashka v'lei Hefer, if it became dark and he did not nullify the neder, he lost his chance, he cannot be made for the neder. So that's the opinion of our Mishnah, that you basically have a limited amount of time to nullify the neder. It's just till the end of the day. But if she makes it the night before, then you have pretty much a full day. Hanya, we learned to the Brisa, Hafaras Nedarim Kol Hayom. Okay, then made for neder is for that day only. But for Kol Hayom, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon Amru, Me'eis le'eis. Now, they have this new opinion that you have 24 hours. So that's a new opinion. That means that if she made a neder at 3 o'clock in the afternoon of today, you have till 3 o'clock tomorrow, to the next day, you have 24-hour period to be made for the neder. So the Gemara asks the question. So my time at the Tanakama, what's the reason of the Tanakama that you only have that day to make for the neder? Amakra, because the pasuk says, if you nullify the day that you heard. So you don't really have 24 hours. You basically have from the day that you heard till the end of that day. That's the opinion of the Tanakama. But what is the of those pair of Rabbanan? Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, those pair hold you have 24 hours. Why? Why do they hold 24 hours? Because there's another pasuk that says, Miyoim El Yoim, that if they didn't make for the neder from this day to the next day, then it's confirmed. So from this day to the next day, El Yoim implies, it seems to indicate that he has 24-hour period of free reign to decide if he wants to nullify the neder. So the Gemara asks the question of the Tanakama, according to the Tanakama, who says you have only that day, Haksiv Miyoim El Yoim, doesn't the pasuk say that you have 24 hours from this day to the next day? Answers the Gemara, Itzdrach, I need it. Why? If you have B'yom Shammai, that means you only have that day. If you only had that pasuk that you only have that day to be made for a neder, I would have thought B'yom Mama and B'layla Loi. I may think that you could only make for a neder during the daytime. So if she made a neder Friday night at the meal, right, then you have to wait to Shabbos morning to be made for the neder, because the Torah says B'yom, you have to do it during the daytime. That's why the pasuk had to write B'yom El Yom, from the beginning of the day till the end of the day, wherever the day begins. The day begins the night before, so he can make for the neder even at night. That's why the Chachamim need the word, these pasuk B'yom El Yom, not to teach you that you have 24 hours, but to teach you that the entire day, from the beginning of the day, which is at night, till the next night, that's the period that you can be made for the neder. According to the opinion, according to the opinion of those two shittas that you have 24-hour period, but doesn't the pasuk say that you have to make for the neder the day that you heard the neder? So they're going to say, Itzrach, I need it. The ik said, if it would just say, Miyom El Yom, 24 hours, that's fine. I know that you have 24 hours, but I would think you have more than 24 hours. Miyom El Yom can mean from this day till the next week, this day. So if she made a neder Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock, you have till Monday afternoon next week at 3 o'clock. That's what Miyom El Yom means. You have an entire week from one day of the week till the next week. You have the whole week to decide to nullify the neder. That's why we need the pasuk of B'yom Shammai, that it's a day, a period of a day. But albeit, according to these Rabbanan, the Rabbanan, Rabbi Yosef, Yehuda, and Rabbi Lazar, Shimon, it's 24 hours. So Amar Rab Shimon ben Pazi, Amar Rab Shimon Levi, Ein halacha ka'isei zog. We don't paskin like that zog, that you have 24 hours, but rather a husband's power is limited to the day that he heard the neder. No matter when he heard the neder, if he heard it at 12 o'clock noontime, he has till sunset to make for the neder. Levi Saba Lemhevet Kahani Tanai. Levi wanted to do like these Tanoim, that you should have a 24-hour period to be made for the neders. Now he wanted a paskin that a husband can make for the neder like those Tanoim that held you had 24 hours. Amalei Rav. So Rav told Levi, his student, Hachi Ama Chavivi. This is my beloved. Chavivi is beloved uncle whose name was Chia. Ein halacha ka'isa zug. We don't paskin like that a pair. And actually, you don't have 24 hours. Now, so that's the halacha. Now the Gemara just says one thing about, since we talked about Rav, who had an uncle whose name was Rab Chia, but he called him Chavivi, my beloved uncle. Actually, Rav had a son by the name of Chia as well. So Chia Barav, and now the Gemara just says a side point, that Chia Barav was very easy he didn't want people to have Nedarim. And his opinion was that instead of looking for a Pesach to be matar a neder, to release somebody from a neder, you don't look for information that the person did not know when he made the neder. That's harder to make to undo a neder. He says you can be very lenient on releasing somebody from a neder. The guy says, I regret making the neder because I was in a bad mood when I made the neder. We trust him, and he would matter the neder. So he was easy like that. Chia Barav Shadigiru Badek. In fact, when people would come to Chia Barav and ask him to be the rabbi to release the neder, he was playing with darts, throwing it against the wall, like doing other things, and says, you regret making the neder? And the person would say, yes. And he would say, okay, you go. You're okay. Rabbi Barafuna, Yosef Akad, he would get up and sit down. He wasn't paying so much attention when somebody came to him to matar a neder, because right away when the person said, I regret making the neder, he said, you're good to go. I trust you, and the neder is released. So that's how the Gemara ends off, that these Moraim were very easy to release people from Nedarim, because to have a neder is a very severe responsibility. Today, as I explained in the Hafaras Nedarim that we do Erev Rosh Hashanah, we combine it. We say in the Nusach, we say you say to the people, I regret making the neder, and had I known that I would regret making the neder, I would have never made this neder. And that's how they release us from the neder. So we also believe that charata is good enough combined with a Pesach. Okay, this ended Daf Ayin Vav.
Then